How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore PPF and Tint, and today we are going to be installing some paint protection film on this Audi. It is a RSQ8, and we're installing a kit cut out using Encore on the front bumper of this vehicle, and there's quite a few pieces. So we better get started putting those on. All right, so we're going to go ahead today. I'm going to start with this piece here, and then we'll just kind of, start putting other ones on until we're all done with things to put on. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start all in this area here. We know that we need to work our way around. The pattern has a cutout around this parking sensor, and then we need this to line up across here and back here. This backside does roll in just a little bit and attaches to the bumper goes like this. And there is something for it to attach there before it gets to the fender flare. And so we need to make sure that we've got just the right amount hanging over so that we're not going to have to trim that by hand. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll squeegee out this part here. Now that we've got that tacked down, but make sure before you tack that down that you've got this looking nice and straight. You've got this bottom looking nice and straight. You're correctly aligned around this parking sensor. And then now let's go ahead and work our way away from there. And let's just make sure. Yeah, it looks like this is still willing to move a little bit. I did try putting a bit less soap in my slip solution, but as soon as the weather starts to cool down, slip solution changes drastically. So I've got, I think, about 7 milliliters of soap per gallon in there right now, where in the summertime, I might be running 12 to 14. So what I'm actually going to do to make sure that this part doesn't move around on me a lot is I'm going to get some tack solution right now. We're going to spray back in here, and we're going to roll that edge in there. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and switch squeegees here, because the longer squeegee is harder to wrap this type of small, long contour into place here. So we're going to go ahead and chomp this down. And then we'll give that a slight chomp. And then we'll push this bottom down one more time. Still popping up a little bit. So there's a possibility there's still some slip mixed in there. Let's go ahead and push that down. Okay, now we're good, stuck in place now. And we can see that pretty much all the way over to here. We don't need much for stretching, so we'll go ahead and start squeegeeing this stuff out over to about here. Good pressure. Good overlapping. All right, now that we're to here, we're gonna need a little bit of stretch. And over here I can see that it's almost 1/8 of an inch or so that we're going to need of a stretch. Make sure that this is broken loose. We have a little bit of pre-tacking right here. So let's take care of that. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm going to hold right about here and do my stretch, because all the stretch is really right in here. And then I'm going to look over here and make sure that's lining up correctly. And the other thing that you can do if you're running see how that just stayed in place, and that's because I run pretty tacky. You can put some tack solution in this edge here. Do your stretch, get that lined up. Make sure we've got rid of our fingers here. And then you can go ahead and tack that into place, and then that should hold everything into place. And then we're gonna go ahead and squeegee this direction. Now, because this is already tacked into place with some alcohol mix or tack solution, we need to pull away from there meet in the middle, and then we can take this out. Okay, just double checking, make sure that I've got everything. We do have a little finger popping up right here, so I'm going to go ahead and get some more tack in there, and then we're going to go over this edge and we'll do swipe and hold. Now let's get this lined up into place. Okay, we can see we need a little bit of stretch here in order to get all this to lay down well. We're also, if we lay this into place, we're a little high, so we're going to need some stretch on this. So let's go ahead and put a little tack in this recess. Put our hand right here. Get this stretched down into place like that. Make sure that we're looking really good over here and we're not hanging over too far. We're not hanging over too far this way. And then we can go ahead and start squeegeeing this out. There must still be some slip solution in there because this just continues to want to pop up, or maybe I'm not getting good pressure on it. Okay, so I'll hold that in place. There we go. And then this part here is looking really well. I'm just going to put just a little bit of tug on it. We're going to go ahead and squeegee out all the way down to my finger here. Okay, now let's go ahead and take care of this part here. I'm going to get out the smaller squeegee for this to fit into that recess there a little bit better. And I'm actually just going to get some, let's throw a little bit of tack in there, some mist on top. And then we'll just go ahead and work our way up from this part. Okay. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and, what have I got there? Maybe there's a little bit of water left there, but I put just a ton of pressure on it and pushed it out. It's gone. Okay, let's start dealing with the rest of this now. So we want to see where that's going to line up, but we need to get rid of these fingers here. So I'm going to put just a little bit of tug this way. Make sure that this is lining up good here. And then we will squeegee to my hand there. I got a little something underneath the material here, which I think turned out to be just a little nick in the paint. Let's see here. Okay, and I'm just going to throw a little bit of tack in there. And I'm going to make sure when I'm stretching this, I'm not putting my fingers in the tack solution. So that looks good. Yep, whatever that was actually is now gone. So it's just, it was pretty minor, but best to get rid of it now. Okay, right here I can feel a little something. Oh, and that's a decent little rock chip there. And nothing we're going to be able to do about that. So let's get some mist on there. Let's get a little tack in here at this end. And then let's stretch this over into place. So as I'm stretching, you can see we're nice and lined up here, but this isn't lined up very well. So I'm going to be stretching this way and doing this with my hand, because we want to make sure that this part goes up. And actually I'm going to hold that, push that up with my finger, hold that in place. And then over here, we're going to make sure that we don't go up too high, because we don't want to be hanging over that edge, because that's just going to give us something that we're going to need to trim when we don't need to. Okay. I mean, unless we make it that we need to, right? But let's not do that. Okay. And then when I was pushing on it with my finger back in here, that made that stay in place because we did have some tack solution in there. So let's get rid of everything off the face here if we can. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pull this back. We're gonna get some tack solution in here. Okay, so that did not stay down. So I'm actually gonna hold down here. I'm gonna push this back and into place. Like that, and then we'll go ahead and squeegee this out. And now that it's just tack solution in there, that's definitely not going anywhere. Go ahead and get underneath here. I'll go ahead and squeegee this stuff out underneath here. So I'm gonna start with this corner first and then work my way away from that. This was the corner. Okay, now we'll go ahead and work our way up this way. And actually right in here, we've got a finger. So let's go ahead, we'll get some tack solution in there and let's get this spot laid down really well. And then once the very corner there of that relief cut is stuck down in place really well, then we could give a little bit of pull up this way to help get rid of some of this extra material here and bring this seam closer together, like that. Okay, and then let's go ahead and roll this over and down. Okay, just kind of fill in for any water or air left behind. Everything's feeling really good. There are a couple little fingers popping up way back in there right now, so we'll go ahead and put a little bit of tack solution in those and re-push those down. We'll also come back and check those again later, and you know, obviously they're just pop back up. So I'll push those down once they dry out a little bit. Basically just go straight across them like that. And then also the heat sealing process will make sure that we get those down as well. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this. We'll just slip in there. Just chomping this down. I'm going to hold that in place once I get that down. And this little spot here continues to pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some tack solution in this little finger. Then we'll push that down. Okay. That little corner there is continuing to pop up, so let's sneak some tack solution in there. And we'll go ahead and push that down way back in there. Great. Okay, and then I'm gonna start using just tack on this now. Okay. And we'll go ahead and start rolling over this edge. Basically, you've got this surface, and then you've got this surface, and then one last bend there. So we're just gonna take it over this next surface, and then we'll finish with going over that one last bend. Okay, so we've got it to there. And then now we'll go ahead and take that. That's gonna be a kind of tough one there. Let's start from the bottom and see how that goes. That's way back in there. Tough because it's gonna be really hard to get good pressure on that to get everything squeegeed out real evenly. I mean, I appreciate the coverage, but you know, tough area to try and get that squeegee in. You know, what you need for this is actually a squeegee that kind of has a bend to it like this. Would be super beneficial to helping that go down. Okay, that's all down and in place. That's a fun one there. All right, a little bit of tack in this bottom. Let's see if we can roll this over. Okay. Little tiny finger right here. And this is hanging over just the tiniest bit on this top edge, but there is a lot for it to stick to on the top here. And so one way or another, that'll stick down. So we're gonna go ahead and just try to push it down right now with some tack. And then if and when that doesn't work for all of it, because I can still see here that it's not stuck down, it's still a little bit silver. No big deal. That's all going to go down during the heat sealing process. Also, as I'm working on other parts, I'll come through with my towel and just push that down again, especially if I happen to make it over here to working on this headlight. I'll just go through and kind of push this stuff down like that, and it's already starting to go down. All right, let's get these little pieces on right here. Okay, so we've just got soap in there right now. No tack or anything. Get this on there. Get it lined up. And we'll take our squeegee and start squeegeeing some of this out while I hold it in place with this finger, because it's gonna want to just move around fairly easily here. And actually there is a good long piece of hair right there in it. Wowzers. Okay, let's pull this back. Let's get that out of there. I don't know if you guys can even see that, but it just moved to right here now. Can you see that? Goodness, that's like a tiny little thin lint piece of hair. All right, I'm gonna throw some tack just in that bottom part. Okay, and then let's go up this side now. Might as well just get some tack in there just so this thing doesn't keep just moving around. So let's get our placement there. So right about there, and then we'll start working our way up fairly gently. And then now we can add some more pressure to that. Let's see what we've got going over here now. Okay, that looks really good. So I'm actually going to take this corner here, put some tack in there, and then I'm going to kind of put this up into place like that. And then we'll squeegee that out, and then we'll work away from that area and towards the middle there. Squeegee that part out. See how we're leaving a little bit of a gap here? So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up and bring that over just a tiny bit more for something like that. There we go. Okay, and then as we're coming across here, that's lining up really good with that bottom edge. All right, let's get this center part on. Let's get this little guy into place here. And while I hold that in place, we're going to start squeegeeing this out. And I'm going to come up here, put a little bit of pressure on it with my thumb again to hold it in place. Okay. Next. All right, let's get something on this middle section here, which looks like from the computer is in 2 pieces. And so this bottom section is a piece, and then this top section is a piece. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put this bottom in first. That way when we're bringing these down, we can line them up into this piece. I think that's gonna be the best way to handle this. Okay, so let's take a look at how this goes here. Now it's very hard to tell if you have that centered or not. So actually I'm going to take this back and I'm going to decide that we need to put top part in first and then put this piece in. All right, so that is a good, decent amount of stretch there. So let's see. How do we know where that's supposed to be? So I'm going to say it's supposed to line up just like that. So I'm lining up across this top edge here. Let's just make sure that that's not supposed to go all the way back to this plastic part. And I would say it's not, because if it does, it's way off here then. So let's get this part lined up on this corner. This little notch here should line up on the face right in the corner, and then it'll round over and around over. Okay, so we're lined up real good on the bottom here, and we're lined up right in the corner there. So I'm going to go ahead and tack that into position, and that will be our starting point. Okay, now go ahead and throw just a little tack in there with this. And we're gonna need to put a little stretch on this in order to get rid of this finger here and that finger there. And actually, so I'm gonna go ahead and lift that back up. We're gonna put slip in there, and we're gonna get rid of this finger as much as we can of this one here. And then we're making sure this is all lined up to at least here. It does look like it's going to need to be pulled over in order to, but then we're going to have to get rid of that finger. So let's go ahead and get this squeegeed out first to our hand. And we left a little distortion where my fingerprints were because I was talking and not moving fast enough. So just lift that back up to those spots. And the distortions were basically little silver areas where my fingers had pushed in on the material. And then we're going to plan on getting rid of the rest of that finger as we bring our film that direction. Okay, let's get this lined up now, the rest of the way down. I'm not sure why there's such a finger here, but there is. So let's go ahead and lift this edge back up. Get plenty of slip in here. And then we'll work that finger out in a little bit here. All right. Alright, so let's take a look here. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to pull down on this material here, and we're going to try to get rid of some of these fingers, and then we'll go ahead and squeegee out to my hand. And then we're just making sure to line up really well with that bottom edge. And then we can squeegee all of that out. Alright, and I'm like looking around, I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry, we got to do a little voiceover during this part because I had a friend come in. Maybe I'm in the middle of talking to him. We've got about 14 minutes here that I'm going to have to do the voiceover for. And so what I did right there was I added some tack solution, and we're just breaking up the bigger fingers there into a bunch of little fingers and then pushing them down. And now, yeah, see, there's my buddy. So kind of interrupted me today. And so now I got some tack solution in the rest of this, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this around. Now it's important, again, as always, that you make sure and get these edges really good on the corners here. And what I'm doing is stretching a little bit over to the left there with my thumb, and then I'm pushing down this big finger, because you don't want fingers in corners like that. The extra material builds up right there. If that doesn't get some of that stretched out with as big as that finger was, you're going to have problems with that continuously wanting to lift, and that could be a real pain. Now I did switch over to my smaller squeegee there because it's going to allow me to work over these bends here a lot better, a lot easier. The big squeegee is a lot to try and roll over at the same time without missing something. So you get into this smaller squeegee, that this one is the same firmness as the other one. It's just a much more manageable, like you're taking the film down in much more manageable bite-size pieces there. And you can see that I'm rolling the film over with my finger, holding it in place, and then I'm squeegeeing to my finger. And that just ensures that those areas don't continuously lift up and lift up and lift up, because there is going to be a little bit of tension on those. And, you know, lifting up is very common for areas like that. All right, so I putting a little bit of it looked like I was putting a little bit of a tug on it downward, but I'm not there. So we're just squeegeeing that over. We're making sure that we get that contour there, that bend, squeegee it out really well, so we're not leaving any moisture or air pockets behind. And then we're going to get some tack solution on this whole end of the material here. It's very important that this completely sticks down, because when we go to put in that center section, it's going to have to run into this other piece of film here, and we don't want that film popping up while we're working on installing the film on the seam right there between those two. All right, so we're lifting that up, got some more slip solution in there, and then let's go ahead and get our alignment. We're going to need to stretch up here and to get the film to line up correctly. And that's also going to allow us to get rid of some of the fingers that were there. Not all of them, but we'll get some tack in there, and those are very manageable to be pushed down and squeegeed out with some tack solution. All right, there I go with the tack. And we'll go ahead and push these out. If necessary, we'll do a little swipe and hold on that edge. See, I'm holding there, not for real long, but I'm holding there for a second or two. And that helps those areas to stay down and not continue to pop back up. A little bit of fresh tack in there, and we'll get this top part to stay down. All right, we'll roll over this little area that's hanging over just a little bit. And there is enough room there on the panel for it to roll around and stick to the side. A little fresh tack on the corner. And we'll push that down into place. All right, so I put just a little bit of tug on that, and then we'll go ahead and push this down. And I'm doing a little bit of tug on that towards the back and to the left a little bit, just to make sure that we did get all of that finger that we can away from that corner. And then we're just rolling this underneath, making sure that we're getting that edge again really well, or the bend there, so we're not leaving anything behind. And this squeegee, I believe the durometer on this squeegee, I want to say it's not an 80, it's softer than that, and it's really good for these areas like this. The black squeegee I use is much more firm. I think, well, this one might be an 80. I think this one's an 80 and the other one is a 90. The black squeegee is a 90. All right, so we moved over to the left side there, and what we're going to go ahead and do is get this left side lined up really well, and that's going to tell us exactly how much stretch we need or don't need across the center of this material. Like if you were just to work from the right there and start to work your way over, you may overstretch the material, you may understretch the material to make it to the other side. And so what we need to do is, just like I did there, where we start at the left, get that put into place, and then that tells us exactly, you know, what we needed in the center there, so we don't end up with too much material and not enough at the other side. And then I went ahead and aligned that on the top of those little ridges that go up, and then we're going to go ahead and just squeegee out across the face here to tack that down, and then we'll work in those smaller parts into those recesses. I think I wait until later to do those. They can just hang out there, but we need to get the rest of this stuff stretched into place. So I'm pulling up into the corner there just a little bit. This side over here, I would say, doesn't go down quite as smoothly as the other side did, and that's because the stretch is different. Over there, we squeegee down that top part first, and then we squeegee down along that body line, and then we work down, and then we worked across the top. And we can't do this on this side because we had to stretch completely, you know, it's just the opposite basically as far as stretching. All right, so we've got a good sized finger there, and so what we need to do is get some stretch in that over to this corner, and that should help get rid of that finger as well as get us the alignment that we're looking for. It looks like I've got a little bit, you know, obviously I put some tack in there, so that's starting to stick down pretty quickly, and I got some tack actually under where my hand is going to need to hold the material, and we don't want where my hand is to start tacking. So I lifted that up, put a little bit of slip in there. We'll go ahead and stretch this into place, and then we'll squeegee this out. So right there where my hand is where I was saying we started on the other side, and then we worked down. And this one, we're just having to do it a little bit different, and so I'm just, you know, spending a little bit of time here trying to figure this out. All right, let's get some slip in here, and it looks like what I'm doing actually is making an adjustment. I needed this pattern to go back a little bit further, and because I wasn't getting full coverage. So what I'm doing is lifting that material up, and I'm just pulling it back towards the headlight. That way we get we get full coverage all the way to the back. All right, and I think what's going on here now, or what I'm sure is going on, is that I've left a little bit of a distortion in the adhesive because I lifted it up and then did a stretch there, and that area was tacked down just to the right of where I'm working. That was tacked down with tack solution, and so making all those maneuvers in the film or adjustments in the film can definitely leave distortions in the adhesive because of the fact that we use tack solution to tack it down. So I went ahead and re-lifted that up a little bit, and I'm making sure that we're not going to be leaving a distortion just to the right there. All right, I've obviously got something stuck under the film, so I'm pulling that back and getting that out. It looks like we're going to be working this whole thing down all over again. Sometimes it's just how it goes with paint protection film. I mean, do everything you can to make sure that you're working with as clean of an area as you can possibly work. But, you know, dirt comes in from underneath things. It's almost impossible to get, you know, the thing completely clean. So let's go ahead and we'll try this again. All right, and I know that this time I definitely made my adjustment to where I just made the whole pattern go back further so that it wasn't too far forward like it was last time. All right, sprayed a little tack in there. We're getting those edges to go down. All right, and then let's start to work our way down here. We've got a couple fingers there. Okay, and I'm putting a bit more stretch downward, trying to make sure we eliminate as many fingers as possible. And then we'll squeegee this out down to my hand, as well as take this back here. That's going to need some tack solution in order to get that those fingers the rest of the way down. And we're going to start over again. So this side definitely went in differently because of where we had to start with it. So I'm just trying to figure out what the best way is to get this to go down. And it definitely was a bit more complicated than the other side. The other side I felt like went much more smoothly because we were able to basically tackle it in a different order than we're able to do this side. All right, so it looks like stretching down to the corner there might be a better alternative. And then from here we'll go ahead and stretch this down. Always just making sure to double check that alignment and make sure that things are lining up where you want them or where they need to be in order to get full coverage. Go ahead and squeegee down to our hand here. All right, made sure there was no pre-tacking there where I was holding the palm of my hand on the material. We'll stretch down to the bottom. I'm going to hold that in place and then squeegee down to my hand. And then we'll get some tack solution in those fingers and get them to stick entirely down. And it looks like we got about another 30 seconds of voiceover, and I'll get back to being able to explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Just double checking for alignment here. So we want this area to line up really well, just like the other side did, in order to make sure that we've got this set up really well for the seam that's going to be in this. Well, that's fine. It's pretty tough, actually. All right, let's get a little tack in this part. Get this pushed down. It's a tough bumper piece here. This piece. Maybe I'll do some voiceover. Maybe we'll just have some music during that little period there. I might try and do some voiceover. This is a pretty tough little spot here on this piece. Huh?
More 35.
Yeah. Heather, will you grab out some I3?
Yeah.
33. We need the small and the big roll probably.
Yeah. Well.
All right, so we laid all this down and then stretched over to here. and then tacked this down right here, and then started working on getting all this stretched into place. This is actually a fairly difficult area to get stretched and laid down. You know, it's important that we got this area lined up really well, and then we'll then I squeegeed out just the face out here, and then now we'll squeegee into these recesses, but we also need to get rid of these fingers here first. So I'm just gonna throw some tack in those, and then we'll go ahead and just basically swipe and hold these down. First we'll just push them down, and if they don't stay down, then we'll swipe and hold on those. Let's do a little slide chomp there. There's one popping up there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and swipe and hold that guy down. Okay, and then let's get a little bit of tack in this area here, and then get this laid down, because basically I just want everything on this face down, and then we'll worry about wrapping this back in there in just a moment. I want to get some stuff taken care of here in the center before we spend too much time on this part here. Okay, a little bit of water right there, so let's get that out of there. Okay, let's get this finger down here. And so once I get past that edge, I'm just swiping and holding right on that edge of the material with this part of the squeegee here, not the tip. Okay, that's looking good. Now let's get these guys down right here. A little tack in there. We'll go ahead and start from something like this side over here and work our way across. Okay, let's get this one down now. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of tack in there, so we've got some tack and some slip in there. And same thing, we'll start over here, round this corner here into the full recess, and then I'll hold that down with my finger to make sure that doesn't pop back up, and then we'll work our way across. Okay. Just a little mark right there. I can't tell if that's a little bit of air or what that is, so I'm going to go ahead and lift that up. And it's not air, it must be some little minor imperfection in the paint. This car does have a couple thousand miles on it. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and continue over. And then squeegee out up that this little piece here. Okay, got a little finger popping up here, so let's get that down. Get this wrapped underneath. Okay, and then it is kind of hanging over a little bit right here. I'm going to go over that a little bit slower. Hope that with the tack solution helps that to stay down. Okay, let's go ahead and get this area down now. So I'll put a little tack in there. And there is a little something right there, so I'm going to pop this up and push that out. Now let's get this part down here. So I'm just kind of helping wrap that in with my finger. I'm going to follow that right up with my finger and hold that down. And then let's start moving up and away from there. Again, holding that down with my finger so that area doesn't continue to pop up. And just going over that area again to make sure I didn't leave anything behind. All right, let's get some tack in all this. And then we'll start wrapping this down under. Okay, that's looking good. It's popping up here a bit. And then actually, let's go ahead and go from the middle. Oh, sorry, from this side, and we'll work our way towards the middle. Hold that in place for a moment. Okay, we're just drying that edge out. All right, let's go ahead and get this center section in here now. We want to make sure that both of these sides are stuck down really, really well, because we're going to be bumping up to them with this seam. So looks like that's down pretty good. It's a little bit silver right here, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of tack in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and push that down again. We want that to be good and stuck. All right, let's lay this in place and see what this looks like. Perfect. There is a little bit of stretch from left to right, which is going to go really well for helping this go into place. So we're going to start with this one side first, get this good and lined up as well as the pattern will allow. Just looks like pretty darn good. And then we'll stretch over to the other side. So I'm just kind of bringing this in, pushing this together here and holding to make sure in this corner I don't go over, and then I'm bringing this corner down and bumping it into that edge. Kind of hoping at some point I push out enough of the air or enough of the water slip solution there that it starts to tack itself kind of down right there without having any tack solution in it. Okay. And then we can go ahead and squeegee this over like that. Got over the edge just a little bit there, so where they're overlapping just a little. So let's see what we can do about that. There we go. Now let's work our way down here. Okay, then we'll work our way to about right there. And that makes sure that we've got this whole area stuck down. So when we stretch the other side, that really shouldn't move around. Just get some tack in that edge for good measure. In case anything wants to pop up at all, then we'll go ahead and let's re-stick all this back down. Now there, I did squeegee out I did squeegee an air pocket into that, so let's go ahead and get that down now. And this is popping up as well. So let's try all this again here. Okay. All right, there we go. Now we should be able to pull away from that without that part moving. Okay, and let's double check, make sure we don't have any pre-tacking here. And then we're gonna pull right into this corner here with my thumb. I can feel that I'm running right into that and not going over it, which is good. And as you can see, by pulling that tight, it's caused the pattern to go up like this. And we're going to go ahead and leave that for now, but we are going to need to remember that this whole pattern is going to need to be brought down so we're not hanging over that top edge. Okay, now I'm bringing this down into this corner, into the rounded corner part, which is putting a little bit of extra material right there, so I'm going to go ahead and squeegee that out. And then this little edge is popping up just a tiny bit, so we're going to get a little bit of tack in there and push that down. And I'm just feeling this edge going up, seeing how that feels. It feels pretty good. Okay, and then squeegee that out. Now let's check this going down. And I'm going to put a little tack in here. I'm going to hold kind of down here. I'm going to watch this as I bring this down. Well, actually first let's get that corner in place, and then as I let this lay down on the paint, we're just trying to make sure that we're not going over, but we are bumped up real nice against this other piece. And then I'm running over it with my finger just to be certain that we're not hanging over or leaving a big gap. Go ahead and squeegee that out now. Okay. We do have a little bit of a finger here. Let's look over here. Almost no finger there, so we can put just the tiniest bit of stretch on this direction and get rid of some of that finger, and then it actually puts it out here, which seems okay. Let's just split it up between those two spots, but let's also make sure that we're down far enough coming across out here. So something like that. We'll go ahead and take care of the top part here on the face first, and then we'll wrap or take it the rest of the way down. I did not leave that stretch in it, so let's put a tiny bit of stretch in it, and then let's push this area down here. So that should put us a finger somewhere right out in here somewhere. Okay, and then all the way under, just to make sure that that's not going to continue to pop up on us. Okay, so we've got the face down across this area, and then we're going to take the rest of this up. And then if I was having any issues with this top popping back up, I would go ahead and put some tack in that, but we're looking really good. So let's go ahead and bring this down a little bit further. And then let's go ahead and take this all the way down and out the bottom. Okay, and let's pull this back just a little bit. Let's get some tack in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead right here and I'm gonna kind of pull this finger this way to kind of help break it up a bit, like that. Okay, make sure there's no finger over here. All right, now we need to wrap this under. And actually, for this part here, I throw some more tack in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a swipe and hold on this. Make sure that we're off the face there, the front. And then we're basically to the underneath that. So that when we're chomping this down, you know, it's hard to get that high in that chomp. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a slide chomp just for a final over this. Okay, I've got a little bit coming up here on the top. So I'm just gonna throw some tack in there. Get out this other squeegee here, and we'll just do a slide chomp across this. And then if you wanted to, you could also kind of dry that edge out a little bit. So no real pressure with this, and I'm using this end to drag this across. So we're just drying that out. Let's switch spots on the towel a couple times. Make sure that, you know, the towel's not saturated. Okay. Then you can kind of feel with your finger under here. There's one finger right here somewhere. So I'm gonna put a little tack in there. We're gonna go ahead and push that down, and then we'll come back and worry about any little fingers like that. Worry about that later, but those feel like they're all down now. All right, we'll go ahead and wipe this center section down. Let's get a piece on this. I would figure that this is probably one of the easiest parts on this front bumper. A little finger popping up right there, so I'm gonna sneak some tack in there, and then I'm gonna press that down and hold it. I'm gonna come back with a towel and dry that out. I'm gonna go over that with my towel, and I'll hold there for just a moment as well. And then see, it's kind of coming back. We'll wait for that to finish drying out and then push it down. It's much smaller now. Also, the heat sealing process will help that stay down. Okay, I'm gonna get a little tack in this edge here. Let's make sure we're not hanging over any of the edges. And then we'll go ahead and squeegee this out. And we'll come across to here. There's no stretching involved at all. So be very, very careful that you don't add any stretch to this. So what we're actually gonna do is I'm gonna come right here to about the middle. I'm gonna tack this down right there. And then we can squeegee out this section and not worry about affecting this section, and then we'll work on that section. Sometimes when you're squeegeeing, if you put too much, if you put some good pressure on the material, which we do that, right? You can stretch that material and create fingers, or make the material too long then for this section. Okay. All right, and I'm just drying that edge out to make sure everything stays down. Okay, then I'm gonna come way over here. We're gonna put a little bit of tack in this. Make sure we're not hanging over that bottom, which I feel like we kind of are just a tiny bit. So I'm gonna let that extra material go up towards the top there. Like that. Let's check right here. Okay, go ahead and squeegee this out in the area that we've got tack. Let's double check out here in the middle, and then we can go ahead and squeegee this direction, and then squeegee this direction. And we'll dry that edge out. All right, let's get a piece on here. Okay. Get this laid into... Ooh! Don't do that. Don't drop that on the ground. All right, so in order to get something like this cleaned off, I'm gonna take and run my fingers across it like that. And then I'm gonna spray it again. And then I'm gonna rub my fingers down it again. And if I feel any grit on it, that's dirt. Okay, everything feels really good. I literally just squeegeed this floor like a few seconds before. And then let's go ahead and just mist all that off so we can blow off any contamination. And then if this did, like, let's say I started installing this and it had some contamination, I'm just throwing it away. Wow. that's rare. Let me start the camera. That's when all the stuff happens. Okay. All right, so we can tell up here that this is supposed to go right to there and then just come to this edge, and then all of this stuff will wrap in there further, but this top part is not supposed to wrap around to this back side. It's just supposed to cover the face and this side. And then down here, that should line up the same. So just like that. That looks really good. Okay, and then let's grab a squeegee that's going to be able to get kind of way back in there a bit better. So I'm holding the material in place with my finger up here. And then we're going to go ahead and squeegee all the way down and off the bottom. Okay, and then these, second and third swipes, I'm able to put a bit more pressure on it because we've got quite a bit of that stuck down already now. Okay, now I'm going to put just a little bit of tack in here. Not worried about this part yet. We want to get this all into place first. Okay, so we can see that this is still hanging over down here, which it's designed to do, and then we can see that it jogs up and comes over, so that means it's supposed to just line up with this very edge. So we'll go ahead and get that to start lining up just like this. And then we'll go ahead and come over, squeegee this out like so. Okay, so that looks good. And then let's take all this stuff down and out. We're not worried about this part here yet. Okay, now let's see as we come across here how we're looking. So we're going to make it to just like that with no stretching, and then we need about just a little bit over 1/8 of an inch of stretch from here to there. But what we want is, we don't want to stretch it right now because that'll put tension in here, and this is already going to be difficult enough to get to go down. So we want to go ahead and get that down now, and then we'll stretch away from an area like right here. Okay, so a little mist in there. Let's get this to lay in here nicely with as little to no tension if possible. Okay, it's just complicated to get the squeegee in there correctly. So just practice and practice. Battery exhausted again. All right, these Sony batteries are real tired today. Okay, now that we're to right here, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna put that little bit of stretch in it to get rid of this finger, and that'll also help us line up over there. But we're trying to stay real lined up with this front edge, and we're making sure we're not hanging over, because hanging over makes more work, right? Gotta come back and trim all that off. Let's not do that to ourselves. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just place my thumb out here, and that's just gonna kind of help make sure that that doesn't like start popping back up and moving. I know I got the band-aid on there today. Your guys' fingers crack at all? I got a little crack in my finger right there, and hurts like a an SOB. So I put the band-aids on it, keep it good and wet or moist in there, so that we can get that to go away, heal up and be gone. Okay, so we're just continuing to move our way down this. Now let's check our placement. Now that's really good right here, so we don't want any more stretch in this. So let's check this front. That's looking really good, and let's go ahead and squeegee this stuff out. You can see I turned my squeegee over, so I'm able to tuck it back in there and run that very edge. Let's go ahead and get this edge. Now let's see what we need here. Let's make sure we're not hanging over. We're looking really good. So we'll go ahead and squeegee out this top part. And then right over to this edge, like so. And then let's take care of this front piece. A little bit of finger there popping up. So we're gonna go ahead and boop, put a little tack on that and lay that down. A little tack on this edge as well. Okay, and then we'll, oh, I had a little air pocket there, little air and water right there. So always be looking out for that stuff and getting that stuff gone while the material's still good and wet, so that you're not messing with that after it dries. Okay, now we need to go ahead and wrap all this into place. Okay, go ahead and let's see. I think we're gonna just need tack on this. And what we're gonna do first is take it over the first bend to the second bend, and then we'll do a swipe and hold on that where necessary. And let's get this stuff down here. Okay, and we'll try that out. Okay, now let's go ahead and get the rest of this rolled all the way over now. Okay, gonna need some more tack in this. And actually, I think what I want to do, I'm gonna try working my way up from the bottom here. Okay, that seemed to do really good, but the one thing that we want to be real certain of is that we're not leaving any moisture on this bend here. Okay, it is popping up a little bit right here, and we'll deal with that later if we have to. If it just continues to do that, we'll come back around to that. Because like, let's just say that doesn't want to stay down, then there's other stuff that we're going to do with this. We could try putting a little bit of tension on it, which really I don't think is I mean, that might be an okay option. Let's try that. A little tension basically towards the back corner, and then we'll push that down. We'll see if that stays, and it may or may not. It's kind of an area that, this is an area that's not going to want to stay down. That really could use some stretch in there, but there's no way to do that obviously at this point. And so what I think we're going to end up doing is just laying this down like so. Let's try this out. And then where this finger continues to pop back up, we're going to end up putting some heat on this. That's going to pinch that little finger down, so it's going to take it from being a finger like this and just make it a finger like this, and it'll be all, the adhesive will be stuck to itself. And then what we're going to go ahead and do, well, and actually let's try one more thing. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it, let me grab a pick tool. Okay, now we'll get some tack in here. And so what we're going for now is what I'm going to be trying to do is pushing that finger down away from where it is now. And we'll see if that helps get rid of it. Yeah, so that, I mean, that helped so far a little bit. You see how we took it down a little ways? And then we'll go ahead and pull this back a little. And then now at this point, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to try and just break that finger up just a little bit, spread it out between that whole area, and then push that whole thing straight back and down and out. And we'll see how that does. Still got a finger popping up, so we'll see. We'll see. That's tough. Like I said, the next option is, I don't know, and maybe that just popped up right back in the same exact spot, is that when we heat this up, let's see, a couple more things I'm going to do with this. One is just go over it again with my fingers as it begins to dry and see if I can get it to stay down, although it feels like it's not going to do that. Second then will be to put some heat on it, push it down, and then it'll basically just be a little spot that's folded over on itself. And if that looks fine, then I'll just leave it because of where it is. If it doesn't, then what I'm going to do after I put some heat on it is take a knife like this, and I'm going to shave off the area that's sticking up. So it's basically sitting on the paint. Like, let's say it's sitting like this, and this my finger here is the painted surface. I'm going to shave this whole area off, which will then make it like a cut and a seam, right? Instead of sticking out like this, it'll make it like this, and then that'll be good too for good coverage. Okay, so what we want to make sure is that we're not hanging over the front, and that these areas around these supports are lining up pretty even. So let's go ahead and sneak some tack in there now that we know that this is lining up pretty good. And we can go and go back with that since we are holding it in place right here. And then we can go ahead and squeegee that forward like that. Now let's make our way over to this one here. Get some tack in there. Okay. Go back with that. Come out towards me again. All good? Just on the desk there is fine, thank you.
Yours takes a lot of gallons.
Yeah, it's a six cylinder.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, it was passing 15, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it's got the bigger engine in it, so it holds more fuel.
Good amount done. I think I'm at like 720 now.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to continue to work our way over. Make sure everything is squeezed out really well. It's kind of hard to see back in there. It's a bit dark. Okay, so what we're going to need now is some stretch on this. Yeah, please. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this pretty much like tacked down all the way to right here, and then we're gonna stretch this finger out. Okay, now let's get rid of this finger. Kind of gonna be in your guys' way here. Okay, so we're just stretching that finger out, and then we're making sure this line doesn't go to overhanging. We're also gonna put a little bit of tack in here, because once we lay this down, once we stretch that out, we want that to stay down. So let's go ahead and squeegee out where our tack solution is. Then we should be able to let go of that, and then let's squeegee this part out here. Okay, so this is gonna roll over the top a little bit there. It's gonna go just to that edge, it looks like, and then we need this to go to right here. So something like that looks really good. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is, because I can hold here and get that lined up, we'll go ahead and put some tack in here. And then let's go ahead and get that lined back up. So back here, up here, and right here. And then we'll go ahead and squeegee out all that tack solution. Like that. Okay, so now that we've stretched over to there, what we need to do is make sure that we keep all this still continue to be lined up well, which is right there. Now we can go ahead and squeegee from here and squeegee out this whole bottom part. You know, I know there was a long time there, for quite a while I was using that black squeegee, but man, it's on areas like this where you've got some decent contour and stuff, this squeegee works just really well because it allows you, it's so much more flexible than that other one. I think on hoods though, I still end up using that black squeegee a lot, and on flatter bumpers where I really just need to be able to get some good pressure on there. There's definitely, they both have their advantages, so keeping both of these, this, and this all in my pouch at the same time are my go-to squeegees. Okay, now we need to get all of this down. So we know that this is stuck down with tack, so we can't push anything out that direction. And so we need to take this stuff out kind of up and at an angle a little bit, because we don't want to go that angle. There was a little piece of lint in there that I saw I wanted to go ahead and get out. There we go, perfect. Okay, and let's roll this over. Okay. And then let's get some tack in here and roll this over. All right, now I appreciate that they made this go back so far in there, but man, that is going to be a little awkward to squeegee out there. That was popping up again, so I went ahead and just pushed it out and then followed that up with the towel to dry it out. Let's see what we can get out here now. Got some fingers popping up right here, which there was a decent amount of fingerage there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out the black squeegee so I can get some more pressure on it. And then what we're gonna go ahead and do is dry that edge out. Okay, and you can see back in there, everything's looking really good. Running my finger in there as well, just to make sure that we've got everything pushed down, that I can't feel any water or air pockets stuck in there. Okay. Little water pocket right there. Since it's right on the edge, go ahead and sneak that on out of there. All right, so to try to keep down on the amount of time that this video is going to be, because there's a lot of pieces and a lot of things to install, I'm gonna go ahead and just record half of this bumper and then do the other half myself. And I'm also on a schedule today. We've got a Rivian coming in tomorrow that I need to get moving. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this other half here put on, and then I'll bring you back, you know, and we'll keep getting busy on things. All right, let's get this piece on, and then we'll do one of these supports together. There are little pieces that go over those. All right, there's actually going to be a decent amount of stretch on these to get them to line up, which is kind of interesting. I was not anticipating that at all, but it is what it is. So let's start here then on this very corner, and then we're just going to stretch to each one of these. No, it doesn't seem like there really should be much stretch, but there is, so let's get on it. So we want this edge here to be tacked down with tack solution, because we are going to be stretching away from it immediately here. Okay, so I'm going to put some tack solution right here. We're going to stretch till this is in the middle of that. And we'll go ahead and squeegee that out. And then again, center of that. Make sure we're not over or underhanging here off this edge. Squeegee that out. Okay. And let's go in between these two now and get all this stuff squeegeed out all the way back. Another kind of tough area where you could really use a squeegee that had a downward bend on the end of it. Let's see. Will something like this help? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, a little finger popping up back there, which isn't a big deal. I mean, we can always come back and worry about that later as well. Okay, just keep on keeping on here. Okay, a little bit more tack in here. And then let's stretch over to this next one. Keep ourselves lined up real well here in the front. Okay. Now let's stretch over to this last one here. Okay, we're up a little high, so let's bring that down. A lot of tack in there. So as soon as I let go, or as soon as I let that touch the paint, it's like, brr. Okay, up over this edge. I'll take that the rest of the way back. And this part just makes this thicker, which is why this is helpful in this area. Because I'm not dealing with this, you know, even this is better in this area than this side is. Okay, we'll get some tack in here. Lay this down over to the corner there. A little bit of tension on there, made that lay right down in. Okay, now let's get some tack in these little tiny fingers back there that don't want to stay down, and push them down. Okay. What's that sound? I can't tell. Is that water in there? Nope. It's the two fingers in there making that noise. Isn't that weird? What the hell is that sound? Okay, one more finger coming up right here that needs some tack. All right, let's get this pushed back down here. I'm gonna just grab out a squeegee. Last time I pushed over that, I pushed over it with that Bondo card, but I don't know that that gets the pressure on it that we necessarily could use. Okay, and then let's take a towel and see if we can bump that edge and then therefore convince those things to quit popping back up. That does look like that has helped. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and do this one together here, and then I'll do the other ones myself. So one part is pretty flat. Like the bottom here is pretty flat and the top kind of has a little bit of an angle, and this is how it was on the board. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that this is how they want you to put this on here. So let's find that direct center, put that on there, and see if we can just kind of squeegee that out with our fingers. Okay. Grab one of these tools here and just go over that one more time. That's not small enough. There we go. This one will do the trick. Okay, fantastic. All right, let's get on heat sealing this bumper. There's a lot to heat seal. Gonna warm these edges up and push them down. Every edge, every time. And want to be careful when you're working in an area where there's two edges, because you need to be pushing them both down at the same time so you're not damaging this one while you're pushing this one down. Okay, and then there is a little finger here that's popped up, so let's go ahead and push that all the way down. I'm using my fingernail to help massage that down. Then we're gonna put some heat on that and then go right back over it real quick with the heat, or I'm sorry, with my finger, and push it down. Because the heat will normally make it pop back up again. So we want to get it pushed down right quick. Okay, there we have it. And then what do we got way underneath here? There's a finger down here, so I'm gonna push that finger down first. Then we'll get some heat on it. Okay. Then way back here, there's quite a bit popping up, so I'm gonna go ahead and push back towards that corner, get all that down. And we'll go ahead and get some heat on that. Basically what you're looking for is, but you need to heat seal every edge. So, but you're also looking for silver edges, because the silver means the film is not down and it's going to need to be pushed down. So if you push something down and then it turns silver again, it means it's popping back up. And then you need to deal with that by either putting more heat on it and pushing it, getting a better push down on it, or sometimes that means it's going to need to be trimmed off. There's some different things. Okay, way back in there. Okay, so in this corner here, we're gonna go ahead and go like this towards that corner, and that's gonna kind of help split up. If there's a finger there, it's gonna put part of it on this side and part of it on the bottom. That's how you want to deal with those corners. Just go out to the corner and then go away from the corner. Okay, and just be very methodical. We've got this one piece here, we did that whole thing, and then we'll move on to another part. You want to just make sure that you don't miss anything, so just be, take this in steps. Okay, so this was actually the spot that we had. Let's get you down here a little bit more. Okay, this is the area with that little finger that's popping up, and that's too much of a finger to get that to lay down there. So I went in and pushed it down, We're gonna put some heat on it, and then I'm just gonna push that down and hold it for a moment. We're gonna see what that looks like. And actually that looks really good. We're gonna go ahead and leave that like that. Now, if for whatever reason that didn't turn so black and it stayed like silver looking, then what I would be doing with that is cutting that portion off, which would be just taking a blade and either probably starting from the back and just using a sawing motion, cutting through that material that's sticking up and trimming that off. But because of where that is and because it's so hidden, we're not gonna worry about doing that. All right, so let's keep working our way around this piece here. I'm kind of getting sidetracked there, huh? Getting off onto the wrong part. One part at a time, because we don't want to forget or miss something. All right, so when I'm taking care of the bottom of this, I'm also taking care of the top of this. Got a little imperfection there in the paint, probably took a little rock right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and massage that down. Just put a little heat on it and then massage it, and it'll just help hide it a little bit. Another one right here. So this one I'm just going to go ahead and heat up all of the edges. And then go over all of them at once. That one had a little part that was still popping up on this part ramping down. So that's why I was going back and forth with it. All right, now for this big old center section here. Start right here in this corner, and then we'll work our way around. So there's a point right there, and you don't ever want to go across the point this way. There's a point that was right there that's basically, I mean, it's just a really sharp point. There's also one right there going that way, and those ones you want to heat up and go across them instead of against them. We don't want to peel that point up. I really would like to see that be a little bit of a rounded corner or just cut off more than being such a sharp point. I think over time, well, we'll see where the hood closes too. Actually, the hood may close and cover some of that, but when washing the car, it's kind of easy to catch stuff like that over time and cause it to lift a little. Okay, and as we're coming across, I'm going to go ahead and do this bottom section as well. Okay, and then that gets us all the way down to our seam where we brought these two pieces together. We'll worry about that in a moment. And I find sometimes it's helpful to keep the heat gun pointed away from your hand, because obviously the other direction could get a little warm. Okay, let's take care of the seam now. So the seam goes down, curves over, and then down again. And actually, let's get this part and just make sure that when we were getting this, that we got this all the way down and around to the bottom. Okay, couldn't quite get my finger in there, so I went ahead and used the card. Okay, so we want to go with the seam when we're pushing it down. Let's get this very corner down, and then let's take this down underneath. Great, and we'll go across the top here. Okay, and then underneath. And I was just going back and forth like this because I can't really see down there. And so if there was any spots where there was some fingers sticking up, this type of motion is better than just folding those fingers over on themselves. It does feel like there was a finger right here. There still was a little bit of water down in there. I don't know if you can see that on here, but there's actually still quite a bit of water trapped down there. Which means the finger keeps wanting to pop back up. Let's see what we can do about that. And put a little bit more heat on it, and then go over it with this Bondo card. A little bit more heat, go over it again, drying the Bondo card off to make sure that the next time I go over it, I'm not taking more water with me. Okay, that one got it. All right, let's do this center section now. Since I'm already down here, I'm just gonna stay on the ground. See if I can get to that. I can see a silver section, or you know, silver back in there a little bit. But I'm not able to get to it with my finger, so we're gonna have to use the Bondo card for that. And I obviously should have blown this stuff out in there, because back in there in between these two pieces is definitely some water. I can see it moving around when I go past it with the heat gun. And if I would have known that that was going to hold moisture overnight like that, I definitely would have used the air nozzle to blow that out. But fortunately, it looks like it isn't actually in my edge. It's just a ways underneath there. Okay. Let's get a little bit more heat on this. Got to be real careful, because if this tool starts to pinch in there, it can it can mess up that edge. So I'm going straight in, and then when I pull out, I'm lifting up on the card to make sure that I'm staying off of that edge. Let's do just a little bit more heat in here. I mean, it's nice that the edge tucked back in there a bit, but at the same time it does kind of make it hard to get to heat seal. Okay. Oh, I can see some fingers way back in here, so let's go ahead and push those down with the Bondo card, because no way I'm getting my fingers back in there. And let's put a little heat on that, and then go over that one more time, a little bit more gently this time, because the material is all warmed up and we don't want to stretch it or distort that edge, because then it's going to want to shrink back up. Okay, there we have it. All right, well that's most of that. I'm gonna get busy on this and get this done by myself. It feels like it's pretty repetitive. I think we pretty much pushed down half of this, other than maybe this part here and this bottom part here, which is just going to be the same type of stuff. So appreciate you guys taking a look at this video, especially if you made it to this point. I appreciate that. If you guys found something helpful, you know what to do. And if you like this type of content, you want to see some more, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.